All right.
Hel-
Official.
Hello, everybody. So it's 5th of May, and from time to time, I enjoy having conversations in English. And today it's gonna be in English as well, simply because I cannot speak Spanish. And my today partner in crime is Mr. Alain Johannes. Hey, Alan.
How's it going, Jan? Everything good here? How are you there?
I think we're okay, but it's a little bit cold today. Where I am calling you to.
I am in Edinburgh. It's also kind of cold right now. It is here. It is, let's see, I have to switch because I'm trying to learn Celsius, you know.
Good
Right now,
luck with that.
I'm about 10 Celsius here, which is
Okay,
not terrible.
we in Olomouc, which is east from Prague.
Yeah.
We've got 12,
Yeah,
12
so
Celsius.
we're very similar. We're very similar.
Yes,
So
yes.
the heating.
Uh-huh. So, Alan, as you may not know, these talks do not have a script.
Good.
And I don't have any questions written down for you. So, what you will tell me, I will work with. But the first question is the same for everybody. And the
Yes.
question is, imagine that you are approached by a person, and that person on the street asks you, "What do you do for a living?"
Right. Um, yes. I guess usually that would imply a profession of some kind, you know, like where you earn money. But my beginnings with music were before I even had such a concept in my mind. It was just I had this calling and this feeling, this resonance with sound, and being around people that played instruments and sang that made me realize that that was the only choice I had. And later on, when I realized it had to be a practical consideration to be able to make a living from being a musician, I still refuse to think of it in any kind of uh, terms of actually making good money. I just cared about somebody leaving me alone and letting me make music. So I've somehow managed 63 years of doing this, and somehow sometimes I make some money, and I usually use it to buy more instruments so I can continue to make noises. And no house, no car, no fancy nothing, just for a little while a studio and everything. But I would say my daily my daily uh, grind or purpose is to communicate through music, you know, music and words sometimes too. And that's what I've been trying to refine uh, the entire time, while also uh, having some kind of forward motion that is not goal driven. Like I don't want to get any particular place. I just want to feel that I'm exploring every possibility and somehow getting more fluid with this process, you know. So that's kind of like the general philosophy of my life as a musician.
Mm. By the way, you mentioned 63. By the way, happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Uh,
A couple of days ago.
it was recently, yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, you, as a person, for me, are some, let's say, embodiment of a multi-instrumentalist.
Hmm.
You and Mike Oldfield, probably.
Yeah.
Um what are your instruments that you can play?
Well, I mean, I can, it's we have to define the difference between play well and play. Play, I can play a lot of instruments. I would not trust myself to do a solo concert in too many instruments. My purpose in playing other instruments, first of all, I had inspiration from my uncle Peter, who was a multi-instrumentalist, but more on the entertainer side. But he could play trumpet, flute, drums, bass, keys, guitar. My main instrument since I was four, when he showed me the first few chords and sent me on my way, was guitar because I was, just a little kid listening to the radio, and there was the Beatles were very influential, obviously, to a lot of people. And I wanted to learn how to sing those songs and accompany myself. But I became, as I got older, even as early as like, uh, 7, 8, I remember being fascinated with the difference between the guitar and what other instruments could do, especially in terms of the melodic, I mean, the vocal kind of quality that they had. Violin, horns, flute, the human voice, these things that I wanted to be able to also communicate with. I figured the a certain kind of emotional shorthand was available with those instruments that was a little different than the guitar. So two things happened. I tried to play guitar more like other instruments, meaning like the phrasing and the sound and the communication through that, and also I wanted to own those instruments and learn them. And because my uncle would often come and stay with us. My mom was also a singer, so my other uncle Alex, they were all singers and entertainers. He would rehearse his band. My mom would let him stay, and I usually had an entire band's worth of instruments set up in the living room for me to, freely access, because I was pretty chill with them, and they would let me, and I could sit there and play his trumpet and his flute and the drums, learn how to use the reel-to-reel recorder. So I was around it. I was very lucky about that. And also, we were my mom always kept a lot of pretty bohemian and artistic and wacky people that listen to all kinds of music. So they would gift me vinyl like Paco de Lucia. I got to hear, Coltrane, and got to hear Miles Davis, and I got to hear opera and classical music. And from very young, even though specifically I was interested in rock music because that's what resonated first with the Beatles, and then when I heard Sabbath and Zeppelin, and Hendrix, and it was a very good beginning for me to jump off from.
Mm. So, what was your first band?
The first band was so I moved to LA in 74.
Hmm.
Uh, I didn't speak any English yet. I started to learn English, and thankfully, my previous schooling years in Mexico City, the curriculum was pretty advanced, so compared to the American schools, and so all I had was time to learn English since I already knew everything that was being taught. And I remember basically it was Jack Irons, that I grew up with. We had the same homeroom, which is like a 20-minute beginning of the day kind of class where you kind of orientate yourself or whatever. And we met in a very weird way. He was dressed like Gene Simmons from Kiss for a talent show contest, and I barely spoke English, and he sat at the back of the row, and he was walking back to his seat, and I don't know what got into me, but like Gene Simmons has that the cod piece like around the genitals that is very armored looking, the whole outfit. And as he walked by, I just decided to punch, not hard, but just kind of punch and see how protective it was. And so obviously it wasn't very protective. And it kind of hurt him. And he's like, "Oh, you asshole." And then he told Hillel about that. And he goes, "What does the guy look like?" Blah, blah, blah. He goes, "Oh, I heard him play guitar the other day. He's really good. We should ask him to jam." And so the three of us started to jam together. So that was we were like 15 or 14. That was the first band officially. We called it Chains. We had a few names: Raven, Chain Reaction, etc. Then by the time we got to high school, which is 10th grade, we called ourselves Anthem. And then there was another anthem that was the actual real anthem with an E, meaning like
Hmm.
and so we had to change our name to Anthem with a Y. And that was the first band we had. It was Hillel, Jack, and I. We had a bass player that quit. His name was Charles Strassman. And then we just basically asked Flea, at the time he was just called Michael Balsari, who played jazz trumpet. We already knew him as a really good musician, but he didn't play bass. So we had a battle of the bands at Gazzari's, which is this club next to the Roxy. You know, the Sunset Strip was the Roxy, the Whiskey, Gazzari's, and Filthy McNasty's. It became the Central later. It's now the Viper Room. So that whole there's several clubs in the small area, and we had a battle of the bands, and we didn't have a bassist. So Hillel and I decided to ask Flea to become our bassist, and we just had to uh, come to our homes for bass lessons. And to this day, he does these warm up exercises every day that I taught him on day one, how to get strength and coordination. So it's kind of fun.
So it's actually you that taught Flea to play bass?
I mean, Hillel and I, and really, like he was already a musician, so
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
not really like we taught him how to play our songs. But yeah, so that's where it first started. Anthony Kiedis was also with us in class, but he wasn't into music at the time. He was in all the plays. He was acting.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
That was a core group of people, including Tree, Keith Barry, who was a jazz musician that he ran. He retired a little bit now, but Flea has a conservatory, Silver Lake Conservatory in LA, and Keith was running it. So it's this Fairfax High School, Bancroft Junior High School group of people. Also, Slash was there a little bit after us. So it's this whole connection there in LA with several bands that came out of this school.
Mm. Nice
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So we are talking early 80s.
Earlier, we're talking we graduated 1980. Yeah.
I see.
So 79 and with Flea, 79 and 80.
Hmm.
And we played we changed our name to What Is This? And Flea left well after he we went to see Fear, the punk band at the Roxy, and he fell in love with them and freaked out. So he basically quit and joined them as bassist. And we got somebody else. And then so Hello and Flea didn't speak for like a year. Because Hello was really upset. He just felt kind of betrayed, you know. Um, and then the Flea and Anthony moved in with together, and then we had these friends. One of them was a performance artist named Gary Allen, and he invited them to come up with something. Yeah, I have a show coming up. You guys can come up with something cool and open up. So the whole entire Red Hot Chili Peppers concept and thing was basically formed because of that. So they wrote a few songs, I think three or four, and I was there for the very, 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 very first performance. I remember like going, "Oh my God, this is really cool," and also thinking to myself, "Well, there's like, two members of my band are in this band too, and this is going to be trouble because I could see, even though we were super cool band, there was something very new and very immediately appealing about them. So it came to a head where basically the Chili Peppers and my band, What Is This, got record deal offers the same week. And Hillel and Jack decided to stay with me. So the first Chili Peppers record doesn't have either of them on it. And then Hillel left during the second What Is This record, which Todd Rundgren produced. The first EP was produced by Dave Jordan, who just passed away, an amazing producer. Dave Jordan did Alice in Chains and Jane's Addiction. And my band Walk the Moon with Natasha. We had a duo too. And then Natasha joined the band we had met in '84. And she joined What Is This? And then in the middle of that recording, Jack went back to the Chili Peppers. So then it was just Natasha and I. So we did that Walk the Moon duo for two records. Then Hillel passed away in '88. And Jack and I and Natasha formed 11. So that's basically that little period and transition from school to actually being professionals.
Hmm.
by the time 84 came around, we were all 22 years old. And we were already a little bit frustrated because we've been playing for maybe 5 years in the clubs, and getting really good crowds. But especially what is this was very much unusual. It had like a little bit of a blues, funk, psychedelia, a little bit dissonant, a little Captain Beefheart, but then also had a little bit of hard rock in it. So we were always a little bit always ahead or behind our times, either like with 11. Sometimes I think if 11 would have been 25 years earlier or 25 years later, I mean, earlier or later would have been perfect, but at the time, it was when we were sitting around in the 90s, we were quite different from everything that was happening. Even though our entire support group was our contemporaries like Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, later Queens of the Stone Age. These were our friends that supported us by taking us on the road and helped to promote us when the labels were not doing their job at all.
Mm.
So,
Back then in the 70s, early 80s, who were your influences? You named Beatles, obviously.
yeah, I mean, later on it became for me it was a lot of as a guitarist. It became a lot of influences. I listened to, besides Eric Dolphy and jazz and Keith Jarrett, um, I heard Holdsworth really early on, like in '74, who became quite influential later on. Obviously, we used to see Van Halen before they became famous, play around town. I really liked, as a guitarist, I really liked John McLaughlin, Mahavishnu Orchestra, that period, Shakti. I got into Indian classical music. Jan Ackerman from Focus. Jeff Beck was huge with,
Mm.
Wired, Low. Um, Paco de Lucia was always huge. Fred Frith, the avant-garde guitar player. Uh, all the music that was around us, Gang of Four, King Crimson, Fripp was huge, Baloo was huge, Bowie, but so many things, so much different kinds of music being absorbed. We listened to so much stuff. Um, and I was just there's a documentary coming out on Hillel Slovak, and so Jack and I have been looking through our old cassettes and recordings, and Jack found a few gems, and there's I have a SoundCloud link of our first recording with Flea, the first thing he ever recorded, and it sounds like this hard rock, like post Sabbath, pre Metallica, a bit of grunge in it. It's crazy. We're like 17 years old, and quite. I can send you the link later. It's really
All
fun.
right.
It's on
Thank you.
SoundCloud, but it's considering that we're fucking really good already, really early on. So
Mm.
yeah, it was a pretty amazing. Yeah, so there was just the spirit of the time, things were starting to happen. There was all these cool bands coming out, the new wave bands. Oh, Yo Boingo, I remember being, we used to play with them a lot. Um, there were so many cool bands around.
Mm. Were you able to meet some of your idols?
Yeah, definitely. I met Paul McCartney when I was in Crooked Vultures. That was an amazing uh, thing for me. I met the guys in Rush at the Taylor Hawkins tribute.
I
Um,
was there as well,
yeah,
in a crowd.
amazing. Yeah, I never got to meet Bowie, which I really wanted to
Mm.
play with Bowie. I didn't get to meet George Harrison, but I got to meet his son. Um, I didn't. Only Paul's the only one I've met from the Beatles. Met Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, but just in the room because they would come around to see Vultures or
Mhm,
um yeah, I mean I've met but obviously like I was very lucky to be friends with a lot of my favorite people like Chris Cornell and Mark Lanigan and Josh and PJ Harvey. These are people that I admired as artists, but become really close friends with, and collaborated with. So that's pretty lucky too.
mhm. Mm.
And obviously
Okay.
Natasha was the most talented person I've ever worked with or played with, and we'd spent those 25 years together creating. Um, and that was really wonderful because we had this amazing. Um, there was this the differences were and the similarities just made it work because she came from the entire classical world, though she hated it. She loved rock and she loved R&B and she loved Motown, Aretha, Stevie Wonder, but she could, improvise like Bach or had the harmonic facility of like, Prokofiev, Stravinsky, Shostakovich, like it just this helped with 11. It just made for very interesting combinations, and stuff in like Euphoria Morning, the album we did with Chris, is informed so much by her ability, orchestral arrangement ability, their counterpoint, uh, deeper harmony, extended stuff, all that stuff really came into play. And at the same time, she loved to rock. So that was a very amazing something that I carry with me still, because obviously I feel like I'm carrying her and Chris and Mark, my closest collaborators. Every time I continue to make music, I always feel their presence, because it's hard for me to think of. I like to be contextual. I'm more of a family or and it's context. It's like solo records. I mean, I'm making solo records now, but it still feels like collaboration because they're folded into me, in a
Mm.
way. Yeah.
Speaking about your musical history, it is impossible to not mention 11.
Yeah.
And mentioning 11 is not possible without mentioning Natasha.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I'm glad that you mentioned her.
Yeah.
But I just I don't know, some time ago I was just thinking. She was from former Soviet Union, right? And you are from Chile. How did you guys meet?
Well, she was born in Riga. She was born in Latvia. She was Latvian, but obviously at the time it was part of the Soviet Union. Her mom was from the north, of Russia. She looked a little bit like a Mongolian, with the cheeks. Her father was from Odessa, so Schneiderman, like German Jewish,
Mm,
So she had that combination, and so she defected when she was very young. She decided she didn't want to be there anymore. And when you renounce your Soviet citizenship, you basically are in their in the put your destiny in their hands. Do they let you go, or do you go to jail for being an enemy of the people? And so she left, and then she ended up pregnant, um, with her husband at the time, and her parents decided to go with her. Her parents were very, very amazing musicians that were I would say easily in the top 10 artists of all the Soviet Union at the time. We're talking like she left in 74 as well.
mhm.
She was 6 years older than me, so I was 12, she was already 18, or a little 17, and we both moved to LA, and we didn't meet until 84, which is quite a bit, like 10 years later, even though we were literally living just a few blocks away from each other. But it just so happened, So I was born in Chile, but my grandmother took me to Zurich, in 63. So she basically, took me and my mom and everybody was stayed behind. We met up in Panama. Then we went to Mexico City, 68, Mexico City, 68 to 74. And then I kind of, because my Aunt Frankie uh, lived in Laurel Canyon in LA, it kind of took us in, and that made it so that I could be. I already knew I had to be in LA or the United States for to my dream to be a rock musician, because at the time it wasn't really conducive to try to do something like that living in Mexico City. So that's why I got very lucky that we got to the States and I got to meet Hillel and Jack and started my whole journey. But so Natasha and I met in LA. Basically, she put out a record on Motown. She had a band called Black Russian with her brother and husband at the time. And then they put out the record after some troubles because the A&R guy left and whatever. It took a while. And then and then they were on all the TV shows and their single was going up the charts. And then the Russians invaded Afghanistan and then they were boycotted, because
Mm.
even though they were on Motown, So then she split up with her husband and she did some acting and stuff and then was looking for a collaborator. And our manager of our band during high school that later signed Soundgarden, this is where the world gets really small. Um, saw Natasha on a TV show being interviewed, and she was talking about music more than acting. And so he got in touch with her, and then she said, "Yeah, I'd love to, find a collaborator," and because he was interested in her as an artist. So then he brought her to my house. I had a dream I was going to meet her down to the name. The night before, I had a dream I was going to meet her. Um, and she just literally walked into my life. And like 2 weeks later, we moved in together, So that started the
Ooh,
whole journey. Yeah. Pretty mystical. Yeah.
and the rest is history.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so as 11, you started in 1990?
Yeah. 1990, the album didn't come out till 91. So basically, Hillel passed away. Jack and I had a very hard breakdown from that because it was our
Mm.
uh, death, that was close death, and we were obviously, best friends and playing together. So Jack was a little bit like a few months he was in a health facility dealing with mental, just a breakdown and stuff. And then Joe Strummer found him and took him out on the road for earthquake weather with Lonnie Marshall and Xander Schloss, on the band too. And so then Jack was already more open to resuming, So him, Natasha, and I formed 11, 1990, and we're playing around, and we got a record deal through Morgan Creek. Made our very first record, and at that time, Jack was he had been asked to be the drummer for Pearl Jam, the early Pearl Jam when Mother Love Bone after Andy passed away, and they asked Jack to be the drummer. Jeff and Stone did, and Jack said, "I just formed a band with my best friend and his girl, but my friend Eddie Eddie Vedder. Eddie's a really good singer. You should try him out." And so that whole thing started. So then Eddie went up and met Chris, and we had already been listening to Soundgarden from before, but we hadn't met yet. So on that very first record, we met with Soundgarden because we were in a truck stop at the same time as they were, and they were listening to our record, and we were listening to their record. So we became friends and started playing together, and with Pearl Jam as well, because Pearl Jam felt pretty guilty about stealing our tour. We had a tour with we were gonna open, and then Nirvana, and then the Chili Peppers, and it was set for months. And then because their label, Pearl Jam's label, had much more power, much more juice, they basically took the tour from us, over a period of a couple months. And then they realized that they had done that, and then they felt bad about it. So they invited us to open for them for about a year and a half. We just opened for Pearl Jam all the time, and then with Soundgarden. So it was both of our friends in those. That was, like I told you, that was the only promotion we really had because we kept getting record deals, making records, and then they didn't really know how to promote us or what to do. I think by the time we got to Hollywood Records and Reach Out and Crash Today and all that stuff was happening, the only person that had any ideas was the head of metal radio promotion. Even though it sounds impossible, she started promoting us to metal radio, and that's where we started having the first success with Crash Today. But being in the same playlist as Pantera, you can imagine Pantera and 11, but somehow it worked, because, and Beavis and Butthead played us and stuff, so it was a very interesting way of doing it, but at least we got some traction there. And then we started touring with Soundgarden, and basically that friendship after Soundgarden took that break of 20 some years, is what led to Euphoria Morning, with Chris.
Hmm. That was 99, I guess, right?
Yeah, a little earlier, 97, 96, we
Ah,
were on
sorry.
tour with Soundgarden. Then they stopped, and then Chris stayed with us for about 3 months, and we did collaborated on a couple of things. We did Ave Maria, for a very special Christmas album, and then we also did Sun Shower. The song ended up on Great Expectations soundtrack. And then 98, we started recording Euphoria Morning. Avant-Garde was recorded before that because what happened is Chris stayed with us and invited the president of A&M to come listen to our music, and then he offered us a record deal, and Natasha and I were ballsy enough to ask the president of the label to give us that budget to buy a studio for the house and not hire a producer or engineer of studios. And so we did that, and that became 11 AD, where we did so many records.
Hmm.
We're very
Uh,
lucky. Yeah.
I'd like to ask you about your records in 11 because you mentioned Reach Out and Crash Today, and I don't know, Nature Wants to Kill Me is also pretty heavy from my point of view.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you who was playing the bass? Was
Well,
it you or was it Natasha on keyboard bass?
it was Natasha's left hand, and also not separate, simultaneous, because she's a prodigy. So we had either a mini Moog,
Hmm.
or and through a bass amp, SVT. Or what we did a little bit later is when the XP2 came out, the Hammond. I got a MIDI filter, right? So the output of the MIDI output, I told it to only send the last two octaves of the keyboard, right? So from low C, like the lowest C on the piano, but not the super lowest like a Bosendorfer, and then two octaves, do, ba, do. Uh,
Hmm.
and so that would send to a module. At the time, we had a PV Spectrum bass module, or any kind of MIDI in Novation base station later, and that would go to the thing. So that was its own entity sonically and everything. And then her right hand played the Mellotron layer with on the vintage keys with the Hammond. So like like the stuff on 1111, that like Reach Out and all that, Hieronymus, the keyboard performance is all at the same time. So ba-da-do-do-do-do-do-do, like in Hieronymus, oh ba bo ba ba bo bo. You can hear, if you listen to it and just think, the organ, the mellotron sound, and the Moog bass sound is being played at the same time. So that's, and
By one person.
by one person, but also that's the reason why you ended up seeing a lot of footage of Natasha where the keyboards were angled right
Uh-huh.
towards the audience when she was in Queens as well. The reason is that people can't imagine, people could not imagine that the bass was coming from the keyboards, or that some one person was playing all that. So they had to assume that it was either, at the time there was no playing to tapes yet, or playing to backing tracks
Hmm. Samples, etc. Yeah.
or samples. So they couldn't. And then she would get frustrated because people would be like asking these questions or not realizing that she was playing it. So she asked me, she said, I need people to see that I'm playing. Because when you look at a keyboard player, if you look at the stage back then, the keyboard players are always hidden, you don't see their hands. So I devised all these different stands, because obviously it's not meant to hold the weight in that angle
Mm.
and be solid. So we started making all these stands, and so that people could see. And I even got her a T-shirt that said, I'm the bass player, motherfucker, you know, because she was pissed. She's like, I'm fucking doing all this shit and nobody believes it, you know. Yeah.
And by the way, I have also a question about your playing.
Hmm.
Because I'm not really as for me as a guitarist. I mainly do chords, and I am not really able to do scales.
Hmm.
But you are able to play riffs and sing at the time. Reach out, for instance, let's say.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How is a person managed to learn that skill?
I think it's just, one of them has to become folded in second nature, right? So Natasha was even more extreme because she could literally play one bass line, chords, and sing, but not only sing, like sing as if she was singing on top of a band, not playing, like meaning the phrasing was floating around. She could do it much better than me, but I could do it in the sense that, I'd be more in the pocket. But Natasha could be so lazy, like almost like that kind of Stevie Wonder phrasing, you know. I think so. One of the elements has to become, uh, you know, automatic, you know. So or whatever it is, you know. Like we're playing Nature Wants to Kill Me, like we're just playing it now with on this tour. And then broken glass. So my conscious mind is literally just singing the song, you know, and the riff is just kind of like appearing underneath, and this is it's just doing it a lot. You just have to practice and play it all the time, and I think like you have to be able to take your attention away and let it play by itself, you know. So one of the things has to become automatic. In this case, the guitar part. Of course, I'll look down for a second when it's time to move to the next position, you know. But most of the time, it's just like this. And you can practice things like if you multitask. I used to multitask a lot as a kid because I used to like listen to music, right, with the headphones while playing guitar and just letting my fingers run around free, while watching a TV show, just things like that. Trailing, it's have you ever seen that? Have you seen that the video of the girl that draws two paintings, one with each hand, and then she does one with each foot as well. So that's four paintings she's painting at the same time. I mean, I think we can. We can. The brain can do it. It just has to, you have to just practice it. You just have to do it.
But anyways, this is kind of insane.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a compliment, yes.
Thank you.
Um, okay, you mentioned Chris Cornell.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm really he's one of my musical heroes. He's my
Yeah.
favorite singer. Can you spare some memories of him with us?
Um, well, Chris, we had this amazing friendship connection. It's almost like brothers and sisters, like Natasha, Chris, and I. We could spend so many hours uh, just having fun, talking, listening to each other, like joking around, watching movies. There was a time period where he was decompressing after Soundgarden took that break. Um, and then, like probably one of the smartest people I've ever met, and also extremely funny. Um, and a really incredible musician and composer. Like his ability, like a lot of the stuff on Euphoria Morning, um, he asked Natasha and I to contribute music, like write songs, and he would, for him to write melodies and lyrics to. And it was always surprising, um, his ability to create, um, the level at which he created, his lyrical depth, his commitment to the art, to making really, amazing, interesting stuff. I mean, it's between the Soundgarden and his solo records and Audio Slave and all that stuff. Uh, just incredible, incredible talent. Obviously, his voice, you know, to be able to be around like him recording his vocals. He trusted. Usually he would do it on his own, but he trusted Natasha and I to help him in terms of like choosing the vocal takes and recording him, which is a process he usually did on his own. And then later on, for the keeper, we him and I collaborated again, in 2011, 2010, and we toured together. Just a super close, dear friend, and you know the the depth of his and also how inquisitive and how much he kept um just growing all the time, and just like that Soundgarden stuff for me was just like Natasha and I hadn't been excited since we were kids about rock music. Um, it was like being a kid again, listening to Bad Motorfinger, when we were on tour, and then later on they sent us Super Unknown um, test pressing before it was even out, and we just listened to it all day long. I was actually just I was showing the guys in Earl of Hell the interview that Natasha and I did, pretending to the pretend interview with Soundgarden. It's so fucking funny. People hated us so much because they thought it was a real interview. I don't know if you've seen it. It's really amazing.
Hmm. Um, Now I was able to write down some names, and I want you to give me some kind of associations. Your first words you are
Okay.
able to get. So
Uh-huh.
for first one, Eddie Vedder.
Eddie, oh my God. Well, incredible presence, live presence, a commitment to communication. Watching him those early years, especially, obviously now too, um, fearless, fearless and committed and passionate.
Mm. Mark Lanigan.
Oh my God. Depth, soul, um, uh, darkness and light together, you know, the voice, a voice that never will stop being like uh, the way it can affect me, like the way emotionally, the depth that listening to his voice, all those records we made together, sitting right next to him as he was singing. His sense of humor was incredible. One of the funniest people I ever met. It kind of comes off as being kind of quiet or dark or whatever, but that wasn't the case at all. And if that's probably one of my closest friends and one of my most trusted friends in terms of um, somebody, feeling that somebody has your back. I mean, that somebody cares about you and is looking out for your well-being, and egoless, like no bullshit, no narcissism whatsoever, no rock starness, just a pure being, that I miss very much.
Mm. Jack Irons.
Jack Irons. Jack is a brilliant genius drummer and a really warm. He's one of my oldest friends. He's got an unusual way of being. Is eccentric. He's um, he has the best pocket, the best groove. I connect with him so deeply because we started together. It's like part of the deepest of the original or the most fundamental part of me as a musician, the DNA, musical DNA wise. And I'm very blessed to continue that we're, still sharing this life. And the quintessential 11 drummer. Greg did great too, and it was lovely. But Jack is the sound of the rhythm of 11. We had Matt Cameron join us a little bit too, But Jack and I, he's like now like my oldest friend. So I hope we can do some more music together. You know,
Mm. Josh Homme.
Josh is along with Chris, the other smartest person I've ever met. Incredibly talented, incredibly his ability to bring people together, his ability to create an almost entire movements just by sheer will. His sense of besides being an incredible uh, composer, um, his um, his energy and his forward motion for creating environments and situations, that have led to entire, you know, catalogs and styles in a sense. I mean, obviously he had a lot of influences like Chris Goss and Mario Lally and Millionaire, and in some degree, Natasha and I also we influenced each other. But he just continues to raise the bar for himself and for everybody else all the time. And probably one of the smartest and funniest people, like I said.
John Paul Jones.
Jumbo Jones is like a legend. Um, Even back in the day, when I listened to Led Zeppelin, I could always feel his presence in there as like, this behind not behind the scenes, but like this that additional component that was not only the bass lines, but also the interesting uh the harmonic language of the strings and the keys and things that were so made Led Zeppelin so incredibly special. And to share a stage with him and to go and like, have him call me and go, let's go do a jam at Bell Flex House. Let's go to there's a ancient instrument museum exhibition. Let's go. After the shows, we would sit on the bus and jam. Incredible, incredible blessing to have been to be able to share with him.
Talking about them crooked vultures, Dave Grohl.
Dave, Dave is probably his energy and his ability to communicate and is constant uh, this push for new exciting things all the time and bigger and better things all the time. Playing with him is a real pleasure. It's like it's impossible to find a more solid drummer. Incredible drummer, incredible uh, songwriter, entertainer. Um, he also applies himself to play different instruments. He's every time we've been around, he calls on me. The projects have been so incredible, like Sound City, Crooked Vultures. We did that instrumental that he wrote called Play. You know, inviting me to the blessing of being invited to be part of the tribute to Taylor for the shows. Um, Joining him and Violet, his daughter, on stage for uh, Hallelujah, where we did the Buckley version. Um, he's just this powerhouse, this powerhouse of a fountain of energy, and I think so many people in the world, their lives are improved, from all the stuff that he does all the time.
Hmm. Hillel Slovak.
Oh, Hillel, yeah. I mean, it's such a incredible one. It was my first heartbreak, really, when he passed away. And there's so many things um, that we could have experienced together. Sadly, he got into uh, the exploration of drugs as a creative aid. And I didn't join him. He wanted me to because he got into like William Burroughs and that whole bohemian side of it, and we had a little bit of not a falling out, but I just he went on to the Peppers and all that stuff, and but all the years that we were together in What Is This, um, exploring things and I mean the amount of hundreds and hundreds of hours of jamming that him and Jack and I did, where we learned about music and learned how to play with each other and eventually other people too. Those were a massive a part of who we became later. You know, without those years of sitting in Jack's bedroom after school every day, 5 days a week after school, and then all weekend long, just playing. You know, listening to music together, staying at each other's houses, having fun, laughing. You know, the pillow fights, all the stupid shit. You know, but yeah, man. I mean, I miss him, and Scott, it's been so long now. Um, and one has to wonder what would have happened had he lived. You know, how he
Hmm.
would have changed things.
Natasha Schneider.
Well, I mean, with Natasha, it's like almost like a life, an entire life inside my life. You know, those 25 years uh, we lived together were almost like I mean, we're first of all 25 years like literally in the same room or within a few meters of each other. Everywhere we went together, everything we did was together, composing together, playing together. Um, we didn't have to, could spend hours without saying anything and no need to like entertain each other. It was just this weird symbiosis, almost like, we became one person. And since she left, like the only reason like I'm able to kind of make it work and continue functioning. And I realized this really early on, and Josh was really concerned for me after she passed away, is that this feeling of having a legacy that I have to continue exploring and also to make sure that people remember about her, keep playing the songs, writing new songs, reminding everyone that she was here. As anyone that follows me on social media can tell, because I'm posting about her all the time. And sometimes people say, "Why don't you just get over it or whatever?" But it's not really like that. It's just that um, I I wake up every morning just with this almost like she's still here, like I'm living life everything that I experience, I'm always thinking about what she would think, what she would like, or this and that. Listening to a piece of music, writing. Every time I write something or play it, it's almost like she's inside my head, also present. So she's still omnipresent, even though obviously the pain of missing her physically um, is still intense, but it's kind of folded in now. And in a way, it's similar with Mark and Chris, that they're not here anymore, but they're kind of inside as well. Um, and funny enough, they're within 50 meters of each other at Hollywood Forever Cemetery by sheer coincidence. You know, so if anybody goes to Hollywood Forever Cemetery, you can find them all within 50 meters in a triangle. Funny enough, yeah.
Thank you, Alan.
Good thing.
Uh, the last question for you. Uh, what do you do if you do not work? How do you relax? How do you renew your energy batteries?
I mean, I'm constantly like listening. It's either sitting in silence. Um, I used to read a lot more. I read so much. I don't read that much anymore. I either sit in silence or I'm listening to music or I'm jamming. I love to like, I say I wake up in the morning and I'll put a drone on uh, and I'll grab a trumpet or a sarangi or a kamanche or whatever it is or a sitar, whatever it is that I want to get. Well, I mean, I want to get better at all the instruments. So I will put in a few hours of playing a little bit of each instrument. I'll go for a walk. I love going in the water, whether it's the ocean or the pool. I love sitting with friends and enjoying that. It's basically just this. It's more of the same, you know. I don't really look at it as work, when I'm mixing records for friends or mastering or collaborating at a distance or like this, now we just did I'm on tour now in the UK and Ireland. Then I'm gonna go and produce another Patron record at Rancho La Luna in June. Then I have some shows in July. It's just fun because I'm basically very nomadic these days. I don't really um have a place in the States anymore, so I'm just kind of nomadic. I go park myself in Santiago a little bit. I've got my Chilean band that we just played, opened for Tool, opened for Mudhoney acoustically, and it's just a good life, just going back and forth, trying to get my health back in order. And that's it. That's it. Just basically music, 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 and nature when I can, sit by the trees and by the water, and I'm definitely avoiding uh, any kind of toxicity at the moment, because the world is very, very intense right now. So I'm doing my best to just stay focused and try to bring positivity and some kind of healing energy somehow against this tremendous assault of darkness that's been happening in the world. So yeah,
Alan, thank you very much. Thank you for
thank
your
you,
time. I'd like to wish you to stay healthy.
thank you.
And on a more personal note, I am pretty sure that Natasha will be not forgotten.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks, buddy.
Okay,
Awesome.
so thanks very much. And as I mentioned, now I will stop the recording and ask you a couple more things, but don't worry, it will be just 3 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you.